Okay, so we're going to finish off exercise 5-6 that we started on November 5th in the morning. So first thing I'm going to do is grab the starting point from session 4-4. So in here we have uploaded the where we got to so far in class. So I'll just copy the project, paste it in, open it up in NetBeans. So I'm just pasting it in Windows Explorer, and then I'll open up that project in NetBeans. Yeah, so once this opens, so we got 5-6. I'll do a quick overview where we were at. And so inside a worker package, we have a pay test main class, which just creates worker pay class by calling the custom constructor that we created. And the constructor accepts a new scanner for getting input from the user. And then also we show the details about the worker afterwards. So it's in the worker pay class that the constructor gets all the information we need. So you take a look at the constructor we created. It accepts the scanner instance. And we call them, the first thing we do is call a method. The A group didn't do this, but the B group did get this far. So basically all we did was take the code from the getting the input from the user and move it into a method. So just hop down to that and take a look at it. So a lot of it is we get the hours worked, the skill level, and then if they are skill level 3, we ask for if they're a participant in the pension plan. So we get an input next Boolean. We did find a method in the scanner class called next Boolean, in which you have to enter true or false, and then it works the same as the other scanner methods. So we get the participant pension plan. And then right after that, if it's skill level 2 or skill level 3, we go and get the information about insurance. So we find out if they are a participant in the medical, participant in dental, or a participant in long-term disability insurance. So we update the class instance attributes based on what the user puts in. So we look back up again at the instance attributes for the class. We have hours worked and skill level, participant in the pension plan, medical, dental, and long-term insurance. We have 4 other instance attributes that we use to hold some information, which is all derived from these 6 attributes. So we have regular pay, which is the pay for work less than 40 hours. The overtime pay, which is the amount they get paid for the hours over 40. Total deductions, which are the insurance premiums, the pension plan payments, and that might be it. So that would be the deductions that are possible. And finally, the hourly rate. So we have an attribute to capture what the hourly rate is, if we want to. All right, so back to the constructor. After we get all the input from the user, next piece of work that we want to do is to calculate the pay for that this instance of the class. So calculate pay method. You see that the big thing for calculating the pay is based on the pay rate, the number of hours worked, and then also if there's overtime hours, you have to take that into account as well. So the first thing we looked at doing was we said if the hours are less than 40, the regular pay is the hours worked times the rate of pay, and then also the overtime pay is 0. So a little separate. Let's put that down the next line. All right, so here we just sort of implemented Java, that pseudocode. So we have regular pay equal to hours worked times the pay rate. And we used a method to get the pay rate. So you can see we set the pay rate. So we do have another attribute created up here, right? But we're just not going to use. We're not going to use this. So we're just going to delete it. We're just going to use this get pay rate. Every time we want to figure out what the pay rate, look at what the current skill level is and return the pay rate associated with that skill level. If it's not 1, 2, or 3, we just get a little error in the console. All right. So that's how we figured out this regular pay. Else, if the hours worked are not less than or equal to 40, that means they have some overtime. So just like our pseudocode says, if the hours are over 40, we take 40 times the base pay rate, and we take any hours over 40 and multiply it by the base pay rate plus times by the OT factor, which we have at 1.5. So say regular pay is equal to 40. I'll use that constant times pay rate and overtime pay is equal to the hours worked minus the max regular hours. See, we're using this constant max regular hours in case they change eventually. They say, all right, your regular hours are 35 hours in a week, and then your overtime pay is based on the difference between 35 hours and the amount of hours you worked. That way we would have a constant that we can just change in one place and still have our code work. All right, and so that's the amount of overtime hours times get pay rate again. It's not, we could store that in an attribute, so we don't have to call it twice, but that's all right. Times the, well, look at the overtime premium factor. It's going to be 1.5. So we multiply their overtime pay by 1.5. Well, yeah, you know what I mean. All right, so after that, calculate pay is set. We know after we call this method that our regular pay and our overtime pay are going to be set. All right, so let's test that out before we go any further. So it's calculate pay. And I'm not going to worry about that warning right now. It's just a warning. It should still work. So inside we have a toString method created down here, which we have regular pay and overtime pay being displayed. So whenever I run this, I'll expect to see some valid regular pay and overtime pay. So I'm going to base it on, do some desk checking here. I want to look at, so say I work for 50 hours, so that'll be 40 at regular time and 10 hours at 1.5. So if I'm a pay rate for level 2 is $20. So I'll have 40 times 20 is $800 plus 10 times 20 times 1.5, which is 300, so 450. It doesn't seem right. 300, 10 hours. Anyway, this should be simple math. So, oh, it's 200 times 1.5. Right. So it is only 300. And so 800 regular plus 300 would give me 1100. So I'll just run the program and test it with that test data and see if it works. I think it's coming here. And it should be running. All right, so enter hours worked. I said 50, right? So 50 hours, skill level 2. So it's asking me some of this stuff. I don't really, none of this, the answers to this doesn't matter, but you see I have to put in true or false. And then I see 800 regular pay and 300 overtime pay. So that's working correctly, right? All right, so that's the next step. Go back down to our constructor. We now have our calculate pay working. Next thing we got to do is calculate deductions. So I'm going to create a little method here. This. So deductions for insurance and pension worker. Let's put my cents. Author. Okay. All right. I'm going to drop it off header comment. And I'm going to say public void calculate deductions. So I think to make sure I know what I'm going to do before I start coding. So I'm going to, based on if they are a pension contributor, so if that attribute is true, I'm going to calculate the pension amount as 3% of their total total salary. So I'm going to create a couple of other attributes here to hold that information. So public float, pension, pension deduction, set to 0.0. Private float. I'm going to change that to be similar to the way I was doing before. I'll have a deduction. So all my deductions will start with deduction, pension, deduction, medical. The deduction medical, this is, it's a constant, right? It's not a percentage of something. So I have to take into account that. So it's necessarily as important to have an attribute that will hold that information, but you can do it if you want. So I'm just looking. So 3% of their gross pay. All right, so that's okay. So it's a weekly amount, right? So you pay 3% all of it each week. So you're, might as well make a deduction medical, deduction dental, deduction term equal 0.0f. So they're all defaulted to 0. And then I already have an attribute here for total deductions. So there's somewhere, wherever I'm getting their stuff, I'm getting them to tell me if they're a pension plan contributor. So once they tell me, I could do it right at this point in the constructor. So the deduction for the pension plan, well, no, I can't, because this is a portion is dependent on the total, you know what I mean? It's dependent on the calculating the total pay. However, what I could do is calculate the total pay before I do this pension stuff, because the total pay doesn't matter on this. So maybe I'll move that up here. Where is the total pay? Yeah, calculate pay method. All right, no, so I'm gonna forget about that. I'm just gonna leave it. So I do get input from user, then I do calculate pay and calculate deductions. So I'll just do it in the calculate deductions method. All right, so right here, I'm just going to use an if statement for the pension. So I'm just going to say if you're a participant in the pension plan. So the only ones that are going to have yes are the ones that are skill level 3. But if you're a pension plan, then I'll say deduction pension is equal to, and I'm looking for pension plan rate, 3% times, and this is going to be a total of the regular pay plus overtime pay. All right, so that's going to be the math for the deduction for pension. And very similarly for the others, I'm just going to have an if statement for each one. So if participant medical deduction equal deduction medical is equal to, this is a constant, right? Insurance cost medical, and 2 more. If participant dental, then deduction dental is equal to insurance cost dental. And finally, if participant long term, then deduction long term is equal to insurance cost long term. And finally, total deductions is equal to deduction pension plus deduction medical plus deduction dental. So make sure you don't make any mistakes here. Then you got some simple math. Okay. Total deductions that's a little simple. Say deductions based on the Booleans. A quick note that this is the same, if participant pension plan is the same as saying if participant pension plan is equal to true. All right? But you don't need to say that. You can just use the value, it'll just use the value of the Boolean. All right, so now we've got the last piece called. I'd want to check the math and do some more desk checking. But first I'll go down here and modify the toString method. Search for toString. There it is. I'm just going to grab some more of this. Just fix all the semicolon here. At the end. I'm gonna say this is just a little tedious work now, getting the output for each deduction. Pension. How about I just put it, I'm just thinking I'll put it up above here. Pension plan, so it'll say true. And how about I'll just add a string here and say brackets, I'll put the amount. So dollar plus deduction pension plus, and close the quote, plus. So I just do the same thing for each one here. Deduction medical. Deduction dental. And finally, deduction long term. Plus the total deductions. Got a dollar sign plus total deductions. I'm just adjusting my two-string method to show the extra information. And finally, at the very end, I'm going to show net pay is plus so I'll say the net pay is equal to, I'll just do the math, regular pay plus overtime pay minus total deductions. Okay, so that should be almost it, right? So we're doing some math and we're breaking stuff up. So hopefully what you can do is look back and see all the different pieces that were needed here. This will be posted in SAM. There's one little thing we missed, which was showing an error if your total deductions were higher than your salary amount, right? So maybe we'll just add that in your two-string method. So I'll just say, it says here in the questions, if deductions exceed the gross pay, display an error message. So maybe just at the end of the output, we'll just have so first, instead of returning this, say string output. I'm just going to put all that string into a string variable. And then after this, I'm going to do say here is if deductions are higher than pay, add an error message. So it's an if statement, if, let's do this math over again. I could throw that into a variable. This float pay equal. So as soon as I'm going to be using something over again, it's better to have it as a variable instead. I'll just say use the net pay variable instead. So if net pay is less than 0, I'm just going to add a little bit to the string. So I'll just say output plus equals error net pay cannot be negative plus system, add another line. Okay, I'll add another blank line at the end. How about And then I'll just, at the end of my toString, return the output. All right, so I've got a lot of stuff added here to see if it will work. Oh, got some error red here. It's not going to work. Let's see what the error is. Let's say the problem is found a value. If I was doing this in class, I'd have you guys to show me. Am I missing a plus somewhere? There I am. Oh yeah, so it's just there. Equal instead of a plus. A little bit more, another typo. Try it again. I'll do some testing. I'll need to do a little bit more testing for this. I'll try 50 hours again. Skill level 2. True, false. So medical, dental, just medical. Missing a little return after my total deductions. All right, I'm going to take this and stop here and upload it in SAM, and then you can review at your leisure, kind of thing. So we've got a pretty big toString with lots of attributes, but basically we just have a nice object-oriented class with a bunch of attributes broken up into 3 pieces: getting the input from the user, calculating the pay, and calculating deductions as part of the constructor. And then the main method calls the constructor and then outputs the worker information. So this will be uploaded in topic 4 in SAM.